My name is Bryce, and this is The Sex Factor, where we talk about popular TV shows and all the ways that they could be promoting safer sex, but most of the time they don't. This week on The Sex Factor, I will be talking about another adorable episode of I Just Want My Pants Back. As you might remember from last time, or if you've been watching the show on MTV, Pants is a sitcom about four friends in their early 20s trying to survive life after college. Jason, the main character, is still hung up on Jane, who he had one night of fun fridge sex with, but then she borrowed his pants and gave him a fake number. The audience and his friends must then follow him on his journey to try to get back his favorite pair of jeans and hopefully Jane in the process. So, as I have previously said, this show leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to safer sex promotion, because it places the characters in many sexual situations without any of them ever mentioning condoms or dealing with any consequences afterwards. This episode, which is oh so subtly entitled, Something's Wrong Down There, tries to tackle the subject of sexually transmitted infections when Tina discovers an uncomfortable rash. To start off with, I would like to commend the show for having the friends be supportive and non-judgmental when she tells them about her problem. It is really great for viewers to see these types of reactions because it may increase people's comfort with talking to their friends and partners about STIs and getting tested. But before I go giving it too much praise, I must point out that the clinic Jason takes Tina to must be the only one in the entire borough, judging by the amount of people waiting outside to get checked. And by having them run into another character that they hate, it gives the impression that you will have to see people that you know when you go to get tested, which, depending on where you live, would probably never happen. Then, to make matters worse, they give up on going to the clinic altogether to go see Eric for some medical advice, even though he is not a doctor and recently just started med school. While I must admit that this scene was definitely funny, it is completely ridiculous to trust your friend's diagnosis of STIs or any medical condition for that matter. Not only, again, is Eric not a doctor, but even if he was, all he does is take a look at Tina's vulva before declaring that she has chlamydia, or the little c, as he calls it. To test for chlamydia, most medical professionals will take a painless swab from the vagina or get a urine sample. No doctor would just take a look and say definitively that somebody has an STI or not. My biggest problem with this was that many cases of chlamydia, especially in women, have no symptoms. So Eric seeing a rash and concluding that it was the little c had me scratching my head for the rest of the episode. The episode did redeem itself somewhat, though, by showing how Tina then handles telling her past partners about the possible STI diagnosis. Even though it was embarrassing and definitely not the type of catch-up conversation most people want to have with an ex, she bites the bullet and with Stacy by her side goes to tell her former intern from her job that he might have something of the venereal variety. Even though it is awkward, she manages to tell him, well, Stacy actually does, but regardless, he will now get tested, which is a great thing to do even if it's not prompted by news from an ex. When Tina goes to tell the next guy from her past lovers list, they definitely amp up the humor by having him not really speak English, so he can't understand her, which leads to some very interesting Pictionary. Nevertheless, she is able to get her point across, and then we have yet another person who will be hopefully going to get a checkup on their sexual health. The final man on her list, Brett, is the hardest for her because she feels that telling him might ruin their on-again, off-again, sexual, and kind of romantic relationship, but in the end she goes to tell him because she knows it's the right thing to do. On her way there, Eric calls with the news that after he did some checking on his own with a real doctor, he no longer thinks she has chlamydia because it looks more like a rash from wearing skinny jeans. Oh, the woes of being a hipster. Tina is overjoyed that she does not have an STI and leaves Brett's apartment building without talking to him about it. Now, even though this new diagnosis makes a lot more sense, the show still could have had her going to a medical center to have a real STI test and make sure everything was negative. By having her just believe her friend again, she makes the same mistake as when she believed him in the first place that she had chlamydia. This episode definitely could have taken advantage of the fact that after the STI scare, the whole group could have gone and gotten tested, or at least had a discussion about using condoms more regularly, but they didn't. While the 20-something recent college grad in me really likes the show, the sexuality educator in me is not so pleased. I've not totally given up on Pants though, because come on, it's filmed in my hometown, but I am really hoping for more plots that include some mention of condom use or at least any type of a safer sex discussion later in the season.